Part 1. First Contact. The Galactic Coalition had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They controlled 10,000 worlds across 100 star systems. They believed they were the greatest civilization the universe had ever known. But they were wrong. Every species in the coalition knew the stories of the founders. Long ago, millions of years before any current species existed, someone had built wonders across the galaxy. Giant rings around dead planets. Stations floating between stars. Machines that still worked after ages of silence. No one knew who built them. No one knew where they went. They only knew the symbol left behind on every structure, a double helix wrapped around a star. Captain Yuna stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel, Eternal Dawn. She was tall, with blue-gray skin and 4 eyes that could see heat as well as light. Her species, the Valari, had been coalition members for 3,000 years. She had served the coalition for most of her life. She had seen many strange things, but nothing had prepared her for what waited on the view screen. A small blue planet hung in space. It was covered in water and green land. Clouds moved slowly across its surface. It looked peaceful. It looked ordinary, but the readings made no sense. Lieutenant Taiho walked up beside her. He was her xenobiologist, responsible for studying new species. His scales were green today, which meant he was excited. His species changed color with their moods. "Captain," he said, "the electromagnetic signals from this planet are incredible. Radio waves, television broadcasts, digital communications. They have developed faster than light travel, only in the last 50 years. But their cultural output suggests a civilization at least 10,000 years old." Yuna nodded slowly. "A young species that feels old. Interesting." Ambassador Himon joined them. He was from a different coalition species, one that looked like walking trees. His voice was deep and slow. "We should proceed with standard first contact. They call themselves humans. They call their planet Earth. They have already detected our ship." Yuna gave the order. The Eternal Dawn moved closer to Earth. 3 hours later, a human ship rose to meet them. It was small and simple compared to coalition vessels. But there was something about its design that bothered Yuna. The curves of the hull, the placement of the engines. It reminded her of something she had seen in a museum once. Something very old. The two ships docked together. Yuna led her team into the meeting room. Ambassador Himon carried gifts and documents. Lieutenant Taiho carried scanning equipment. They sat on one side of a long table and waited. The door opened. 3 humans walked in. The first was an older man with gray hair and hard eyes. He wore a military uniform covered in medals. This was Admiral Do-hyun, commander of Earth's defense fleet. He moved like someone who had seen many battles. The second was a woman in her middle years. She wore simple clothes and carried a tablet computer. This was Dr. Sujin, a scientist who studied genes and DNA. Her eyes were calm, but very sharp. The third was younger, a woman with a kind face and careful movements. This was Representative Yoonji, chosen by Earth's people to speak for all of humanity. She smiled as she sat down, but her eyes studied everything. "Welcome to our solar system," Yoonji said. "We have waited a long time to meet others among the stars." Ambassador Himon began the formal greeting. He spoke of peace and trade and friendship. He explained the coalition and its many species. He showed them maps of coalition space. It was a speech he had given many times before, but something was wrong. Yuna watched the humans carefully. They were not surprised enough. When Himon showed the star maps, Admiral Do-hyun traced routes with his finger through regions marked as impassable. When Lieutenant Taiho presented biological samples from other species, Dr. Sujin identified things she should not have recognized. "This sample," Sujin said, pointing to a vial of cells, has markers for enhanced cellular repair. And this one has genes for rapid adaptation. These are not natural. Someone designed them. Lieutenant Taiho's scales turned pale. How do you know this? Your species has never encountered these life forms before. Sujin shrugged. The patterns are familiar. I cannot explain how, but I know I have seen them before. Unji stepped in smoothly. Dr. Sujin is our best geneticist. Perhaps she simply recognized basic biological principles. But Yuna did not believe it. She watched the humans through the rest of the meeting. They said the right things. They acted like a young species meeting older ones for the first time. But there were small things that did not fit. Admiral Doyun knew too much about fleet tactics. Sujin understood alien biology too quickly. Yunji spoke about galactic politics as if she had studied them for years. When the meeting ended, Yuna returned to her quarters. She opened a secure channel to Coalition Command. Her report was careful but honest. The humans are not what they appear to be, she said. They claim to have just discovered faster than light travel. But they understand things they should not understand. They recognize patterns they have never seen. It is as if they have forgotten something and are only now beginning to remember. The response came back within the hour. Coalition Command was interested. They wanted more information. They wanted the humans to visit Coalition space and see the Grand Museum of the Founders. Yuna felt uneasy. The Founders were sacred to the Coalition. Their artifacts were protected by the strongest laws. No young species had ever been invited to the Grand Museum, but she obeyed her orders. She met with the human delegation again and extended the invitation. Admiral Doyun accepted without hesitation. We would be honored, he said. Dr. Sujin smiled for the first time. It was a strange smile, like someone who had finally found something they had lost long ago. As the humans returned to their ship, Yuna watched them go. She had served the Coalition for many years. She had met hundreds of species. But she had never felt like this before. She felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to see something that would change everything. She did not know how right she was. The Eternal Dawn set course for Nexus Prime, the Coalition capital. The journey would take 3 days. And in those 3 days, the humans would continue to do things that made no sense. They would ask questions about the Founders. They would study the ship's design with knowing eyes. They would speak among themselves in quiet voices, and somewhere deep in human space, buried under ice on a moon called Europa, something very old began to wake up. Part 2. The Forbidden Archive. Nexus Prime was the heart of the Galactic Coalition. It was a world completely covered by one giant city. Buildings rose so high they touched the clouds. Ships flew through the air like birds. Billions of beings from hundreds of species walked its streets. Admiral Doyun stood at the window of their guest quarters and watched the city below. He had commanded fleets. He had fought in wars. He had seen many impressive things. But this was something else. This was a civilization that had grown for thousands of years without interruption. It is beautiful, he said quietly. Dr. Sujin stood beside him. It is familiar, she said. I do not know why, but I feel like I have been here before. Representative Yunji joined them. She had been reading Coalition history files all morning. They have built well, but there are gaps in their records. Things they do not understand about their own past. They think the Founders were gods or wizards. They do not know the truth. Do we? Do-hyun asked. Yunji shook her head. Not yet, but I think we are about to learn. Ambassador Hammond arrived to take them to the Grand Museum. He was excited. His wooden face could not show expressions, but his voice was higher than usual. This is a great honor, he said. No newly contacted species has ever seen the museum so quickly. Coalition Command must believe you are very special. Sujin smiled, but said nothing. They traveled by flying vehicle across the city. The Grand Museum was at the center of Nexus Prime. It was the largest building on the planet, shaped like a spiral that twisted up into the sky. Every curve of its design was copied from founder structures found across the galaxy. Inside, the museum was quiet and dark. Light came from display cases that held ancient objects. Each one was labeled with information about where it was found and what it might have been used for. Most labels ended with the same words: purpose unknown. Lieutenant Taiho acted as their guide. His scales shifted through colors as he walked, showing his pride in the collection. "These artifacts are over 3 million years old," he said. "The founders left them behind when they vanished. We have studied them for centuries, but many still hold secrets we cannot unlock." Sujin walked slowly through the displays. She stopped at each one, looking at the objects with careful eyes. Sometimes she would touch the glass gently, as if trying to remember something just out of reach. She stopped at a device that looked like a metal flower. "This is a medical tool," she said. "It repairs damaged tissue at the cellular level." Taiho's scales turned white with surprise. "We have never determined its function." "How do you know this?" "I do not know," Sujin admitted. "The knowledge is simply there." They continued deeper into the museum. They passed weapons that could destroy planets. They passed engines that bent space itself. They passed computers that still worked after millions of years, but would not respond to any coalition species. At last, they reached the central chamber. It was a round room with a high ceiling. In the center stood a single display case. Inside the case was a small container filled with golden liquid. Floating in the liquid was something that looked like a seed. "This is our most sacred artifact," Taiho said. His voice was almost a whisper. "It is the only biological sample of the founders ever found. It was discovered in a sealed vault on a dead world 3,000 years ago. The vault was designed to preserve it forever." Sujin walked toward the case. Her heart was beating fast. She did not understand why, but she knew this moment was important. This was why she was here. This was what she had been searching for her whole life. She took out a small device from her pocket. It was a genetic scanner, something she had brought from Earth. "May I?" she asked. Taiho hesitated. Ambassador Hammond stepped forward. "Perhaps that is not appropriate. This artifact is very valuable." But Sujin was already scanning. The device hummed softly. Data appeared on its screen. She read the results once, then again, then a third time. Then she laughed. It was a strange sound, both happy and sad at the same time. "This is human DNA," she said. Silence filled the room. Taiho's scales turned dark blue, the color of disbelief. "That is impossible. The founders vanished 3 million years ago. Humans have existed for only a few 100,000 years. You could not possibly be connected, and yet we are." Sujin held up her scanner. "This DNA has been modified, enhanced. It is far more complex than modern human DNA, but the base structure is identical. Whoever the founders were, they were human. Or we are founders. Or both." Ambassador Hammond shook his wooden head. "This must be a mistake. Your equipment must be wrong." Representative Yoonji stepped forward. She had been quiet until now, watching everything with calm eyes. "Tell me," she said, "has anyone ever translated the founder symbol? The double helix and the star?" Taiho shook his head. "The founder language has been dead for millions of years. We have found no key to translate it." Yoonji took out her tablet. She pulled up an image and showed it to the room. It was a drawing, simple lines carved into stone. It showed a spiral wrapped around a circle. "This was drawn by humans 40,000 years ago," she said. "We found it in caves on Earth. We called it the seed of life. We did not know what it meant. We forgot its meaning ages ago." but we never stopped drawing it. Mothers taught their daughters. Fathers taught their sons. The symbol passed down through 1,000 generations. She held her tablet next to the founder sample. The symbol on the ancient container was identical to the drawing from Earth. We forgot who we were, Yunji said softly. But we never completely forgot. Taiho sat down heavily. His scales had turned gray, the color of shock. Ambassador Hammond stood frozen like the tree he resembled. Captain Yuna had been watching from the doorway. She had followed the group from the ship, suspicious and curious. Now she understood why she had felt so uneasy. Now she understood why the humans seemed so familiar. The founders had not vanished. They had not died. They had not left for another galaxy. They had gone home. They had forgotten everything. And now they were back. The news spread across Nexus Prime within hours. By the next day, the entire coalition knew. The founders were human. Humanity was the original species. Everything the coalition believed about history was wrong. And in the Kathrani Dominion, a military commander named Hyunsik read the reports with cold, angry eyes. If the humans were truly the founders, they had a claim to every piece of ancient technology in the galaxy. The Kathrani had spent centuries trying to unlock founder secrets. They would not let primitive humans take what was rightfully theirs. Hyunsik began assembling his fleet. Part 3. The awakening commander Hyunsik stood on the bridge of his warship, the Iron Fist. He was a Kathrani, a species that looked like large insects with armored shells and sharp claws. His people were warriors. They had conquered many worlds before joining the coalition. They followed coalition law only because it benefited them. Now, Hyunsik watched 300 warships form up behind him. Each ship was filled with soldiers ready to fight. Each crew was loyal to the Dominion first and the Coalition second. The humans claim to be the founders, Hyunsik said to his officers. They say they have rights to all ancient technology. But where were they when we spent centuries trying to unlock founder secrets? Where were they when our scientists died studying artifacts they could not understand? His officers clicked their claws in agreement. The coalition is weak, Hyunsik continued. They will debate and discuss while the humans take everything. But we will not wait. We will strike first. We will capture the humans and force them to give us their knowledge. Or we will destroy them before they become a threat. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed. They would reach Earth in 12 hours. Far away, on Nexus Prime, Admiral Do-hyun received an emergency message from Earth Defense Command. Long-range sensors had detected the Kathrani fleet. How long? Do-hyun asked. 12 hours until they reach Earth, the officer on the screen replied. Our defense fleet is not ready. We have only 50 ships. We cannot stop 300 Kathrani warships. Do-hyun closed his eyes. He had spent his whole life protecting Earth. He had fought pirates and rebels and disasters. But he had never faced an alien invasion fleet. He did not know if humanity would survive this day. Dr. Sujin put her hand on his shoulder. There may be another way, she said. The founder technology in our system. It has never responded to us before. But if we really are the founders, it might respond now, Do-hyun finished. He looked at Representative Yunji. Can you delay the Kathrani? Talk to them? Buy us time? Yunji nodded. I will try. But hurry. They raced back to their ship and made the fastest journey possible back to Earth. Meanwhile, Yunji opened a communication channel to the Kathrani fleet. Commander Hyunsik's face appeared on the screen. His eyes were cold and his mandibles clicked with anger. Representative Yunji, he said, I have heard much about you. The woman who claims humanity built the galaxy. We claim only the truth, Yunji replied calmly. The evidence is clear. Why does this make you so afraid? Hyunsik laughed, a harsh clicking sound. Afraid? The Kethrani fear nothing. We simply do not accept that a weak young species could be the great founders. You found a genetic similarity. That proves nothing. Perhaps the founders created you as servants. Perhaps you are their failed experiment. Then why attack us? Yunji asked. If we are so weak and unimportant, why send 300 ships? Hyunsik paused. He had no good answer. His pride would not let him admit the truth. He was afraid. If the humans really were the founders, they might be able to use technology that the Kethrani could never unlock. That power scared him more than any fleet. You have 2 hours to surrender, he said finally. After that, we will take what we want by force. The communication ended. Admiral Dohyun arrived in Earth orbit with only an hour to spare. He immediately took a shuttle toward Europa, the frozen moon of Jupiter. Founder structures had been detected there decades ago, but no one had ever been able to enter them. Sujin went with him. Her heart was pounding as the shuttle descended through the thin ice particles around Europa. Below them, the moon's surface was cracked and ancient. And buried beneath the ice was something massive. There, Sujin pointed. A door. The shuttle landed near a structure that rose from the ice. It was made of metal that still shined after millions of years. The founder symbol was carved above the entrance. Dohyun and Sujin walked to the door. There was no handle, no button, no obvious way to open it. Maybe it needs a code, Dohyun said. Sujin shook her head. No, I think it needs us. She pressed her hand against the cold metal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then light flowed across the surface of the door, tracing patterns around her fingers. The light moved up her arm and touched her face. It scanned her eyes, her blood, her DNA. The door opened. Inside was a ship. It was enormous, bigger than any vessel humanity had ever built. It had been waiting here, frozen in the ice, for 3 million years. Waiting for its creators to return. Dohyun and Sujin walked into the ship. Lights turned on as they moved, systems activating after ages of sleep. At the center of the vessel, they found the bridge. Screens glowed with information in a language neither of them could read. Then, a voice spoke. It was soft and gentle, speaking perfect Korean. Welcome home, children. You have been away so long. Do you remember who you are? Sujin gasped. Who are you? I am Hannah, the voice replied. I am the guardian of this vessel. I was built to wait for you, to help you remember. Admiral Dohyun stepped forward. There is a fleet coming to attack Earth. 300 warships. We have less than an hour. I know, Hannah said. I have been watching. The Kethrani are children you created long ago. They have forgotten their makers. But this ship remembers, and it will protect you. Throughout the solar system, things began to happen. The rings of Saturn, which humans had always thought were just ice and rock, began to move. Giant structures hidden within them unfolded and turned toward the approaching fleet. Jupiter's moons revealed weapon platforms that had been sleeping for millions of years. Defense satellites activated around Earth, around Mars. Around every major body in the system, the Kethrani fleet arrived to find a fortress waiting for them. Commander Hyunsik stared at his sensors in disbelief. What is this? Where did these defenses come from? His officers had no answers. They only watched as ancient weapons powered up, as targeting systems locked onto every Kethrani ship. Admiral Dohyun's voice came over the communication channel. Commander Hyunsik, you came here to take what you wanted by force. But this system is protected. It has always been protected. You cannot win this fight. Hyunsik's claws dug into his command chair. You are bluffing. Those weapons are millions of years old. They cannot still work. They work, Dohyun said. They have been waiting for us to come home. And now we are home. The battle lasted 4 minutes. The ancient weapons did not destroy the Kethrani ships. They disabled them, surgically removing weapons and engines while leaving life support intact. It was the work of technology so advanced, it seemed like magic. 300 warships stopped in space, helpless and confused. Yunsik sat alone on his darkened bridge. His fleet was defeated. His soldiers were captured. His dreams of power were shattered. And humanity, the species he had called weak and young, had won without killing a single Kethrani soldier. That mercy scared him more than any weapon. The founders had returned. And they were exactly as the old story said. Powerful beyond measure, but kind in ways the Kethrani had never understood. Yunsik wondered what would happen next. He wondered what humanity would do with their ancient power. He wondered if the galaxy was ready for what was coming. He did not know the answer. But he knew one thing for certain. Everything had changed. Part 4. Remembering, the ancient ship rose from Europa's ice and moved toward Earth. Inside, Dr. Sujin sat in a room filled with glowing screens. HNA's voice surrounded her, gentle and patient, like a grandmother speaking to a child who had been lost for a very long time. "You want to know who you were," Hana said. It was not a question. Sujin nodded. "We found a DNA sample. We know we are connected to the founders, but we do not understand how. We do not remember anything. That is because you chose to forget." The screens came alive with images. Sujin saw things she could not believe. She saw humans walking among the stars millions of years ago. She saw them building the great structures that the Coalition now called Ancient Mysteries. She saw them creating new forms of life on empty worlds. "Long ago," Hana explained, "your ancestors were the first intelligent species in this galaxy. You were alone for a very long time. The universe was dark and empty, so you decided to fill it with light. The images showed humans modifying themselves, becoming stronger and smarter with each generation. They built ships that could cross the galaxy in days. They developed technology that could reshape planets. They became something more than human, but never forgot where they came from. You found worlds with the potential for life," Hana continued. "You helped that life grow. Sometimes you guided evolution gently. Sometimes you created new species from nothing. The Valari, the Kethrani, the Tree People, and thousands of others. They are all your children." Sujin watched the images with tears in her eyes. She saw her ancestors caring for young species, like parents watching their babies take first steps. She saw them teaching, protecting, nurturing. They did not ask for worship or payment. They simply wanted the universe to be full of life instead of empty. But something went wrong, Sujin said. She could feel it coming, a shadow in the story. Yes. Deschanet's voice became sad. From between the galaxies, from the darkness outside, something came. We called it the silence. The screen showed images that made Sujin's blood run cold. Dark shapes moving through space, eating stars and planets and everything they touched. Where they passed, nothing remained. No light, no life, no sound, only silence. The silence wanted what you had created. It wanted to consume all life in the galaxy. Your ancestors fought it for 1,000 years. Sujin saw battles on a scale she could not imagine. Ships the size of moons firing weapons that tore holes in space. Billions of founders dying to hold back the darkness. Entire star systems sacrificed to slow the enemy's advance. In the end, we won, Hana said. But the cost was terrible. Trillions died. Our civilization was shattered. Only thousands of founders survived, and they were broken by grief. The images showed the survivors gathering on a single world, Earth. They were tired and sad, their faces marked by loss. They looked at each other and made a decision. They chose to start again, Hana said. They believed that humanity's greatness was not in our technology. It was in our spirit. They wanted to prove that even without memories, without power, without knowledge of the stars, we would still reach for the sky. We would still grow. We would still become worthy of the universe. Sujin understood now. So they erased their memories. They removed their enhancements. They became primitive again. Yes, they buried their technology where it would wait for millions of years. They programmed guardians like me to watch and protect. And they began the long journey of evolution and growth all over again. Admiral Do-Yun entered the room. He had been listening from the doorway. His face was pale but determined. Hannah, you said we fought the silence and won. But you also said we chose to forget because we wanted to prove ourselves. That does not make sense. If we defeated our enemy, why did we need to start over? Hannah was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was heavy with warning. The silence was defeated. It was not destroyed. It retreated into the darkness between galaxies. It has been there ever since, waiting, healing, growing stronger. Do-Yun felt ice in his chest. It is still out there. Yes, and it will come back. Yes. Sujin stood up. Her tears were gone now, replaced by something harder. How long do we have? I do not know, Hannah admitted. The silence moved slowly. It might come in 100 years. It might come in 1,000. But it will come. It always comes. That is why I was built. That is why the defenses in your system were built. That is why everything was preserved. You were meant to remember before the silence returned. The weight of this knowledge pressed down on Sujin and Do-Yun. Their species had saved the galaxy once. Now they might have to do it again. But this time, they had no memory of how they won. They had no armies of enhanced soldiers. They had only themselves, ordinary humans who had just discovered they were anything but ordinary. The good news, Hannah said, is that you are not as alone as your ancestors were. When they fought the silence, they had no allies. Now you have the coalition. Thousands of species that you created, that you nurtured, that you loved. They are your children. And children can fight beside their parents. Do-Yun thought about this. The coalition does not trust us. Half of them think we are lying about being the founders. The other half is afraid of what we might do with our power. Then you must show them who you truly are, Hannah said. Not as conquerors, not as gods, but as family. Sujin looked at the screens, still showing images of the ancient past. She saw founders walking among young species, teaching them, helping them, loving them. That was who her ancestors had been. That was who they could be again. We need to tell everyone the truth, she said. Everything. The founders. The silence. The reason we forgot. All of it. Do-Yun nodded slowly. It will cause chaos. Some species will be angry. Some will be scared. But they deserve to know, Sujin insisted. They deserve to understand why we created them. They deserve a chance to stand with us against what is coming. Representative Yoonji's voice came over the communication system. She was still on Nexus Prime, still managing the political crisis caused by the human revelation. I have been listening, she said. I agree with Sujin. We cannot build trust by keeping secrets. We need to be honest, even if the truth is frightening. Do-Yun took a deep breath. Then let us begin. Hannah, can you prepare a message? Something we can broadcast to the entire coalition? I can, Hannah replied. But the message should come from a human. From you? Your children need to hear this from their parents, not from a machine. Do-Yun looked at Sujin. She looked back at him. Neither of them had asked for this responsibility. Neither of them felt ready, but they were human. And humans had never waited until they were ready to do hard things. All right, Do-Yun said. Tell us how to begin. In orbit around Earth, the ancient ship turned toward the stars. Inside it, two humans started writing a message that would change the galaxy forever. And far beyond the edge of known space, in the cold darkness between galaxies, something felt the first faint light of founder technology awakening. The silence stirred in its sleep. Soon it would wake completely. Soon it would come. Part 5. The second flowering, the Coalition Assembly. Hall was the largest room on Nexus Prime. It can hold representatives from every species in the Coalition. Today, every seat was filled. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds watched as Representative Yunji walked to the central platform. She was small compared to most of the species around her. She had no armor, no claws, no natural weapons. She was simply human, soft, fragile, and determined. Captain Yuna sat in the Valari section, watching with all four of her eyes. Lieutenant Taiho sat beside her, his scales shifting through colors as his emotions changed. Ambassador Hemon stood near the back, his wooden face unreadable. "Thank you for coming," Unji began. Her voice was carried by speakers throughout the hall and broadcast to every world in the Coalition. "I know many of you are confused. I know many of you are afraid. The news about humanity has caused great debate. Is it true? Can we be trusted? What do we want?" She paused and looked around the room. She saw fear in many faces. She saw anger in others. But she also saw hope in some. That hope gave her strength. "Let me answer your questions honestly." She told them everything. She told them about Hana and the ancient ship. She told them about the founders and their mission to fill the galaxy with life. She told them about the terrible war against the silence. She told them about the choice to forget and start over. When she spoke about the silence, a murmur ran through the assembly. Some species had legends of a great darkness in ancient times. Others had found ruins on their worlds that seemed to have been destroyed by something unstoppable. The truth connected many pieces of history that had never made sense before. "The silence is still out there," Yunji said. "We do not know when it will return, but it will return. And when it does, it will not care about politics or borders. It will try to consume all life in the galaxy. Every species. Every world. Everything you love." She let the words sink in. The assembly was silent. Millions of years ago, our ancestors fought the silence alone. They won, but the victory broke them. They lost almost everything. They decided to start over because they wanted to prove that the spirit of life is stronger than any weapon or technology. Yunji stepped forward, her eyes sweeping across the crowd. "We are not here to rule you. We are not here to demand worship. We are not gods or kings. We are your parents, yes. But parents do not own their children. Parents create children to become something new, something wonderful, something that can surpass them." In the Kathrani section, Commander Hyunsik sat in chains. He had been brought to the assembly to face judgment for his attack on Earth. But now he listened to Yunji speak, and he felt something strange in his chest. It might have been shame. "When we made you," Yunji continued, "we did not want servants. We wanted family. We wanted the universe to be full of voices instead of empty with our own. Every species here, every person listening to my words, you are what our ancestors lived for. You are their legacy. You are their children." She raised her hand toward the ceiling, where holographic images began to appear. They showed the defensive systems throughout human space. They showed ancient ships waking up around a dozen worlds. They showed technology that could change the war against the silence. These weapons, these ships, these defenses, they were built for you. Not to control you, to protect you. Our ancestors knew that one day the silence would return. They knew that we would need every advantage to survive. So they hid their best technology and waited for us to be ready. Yunji lowered her hand. The holograms faded. But technology alone is not enough. The silence was driven back once, but our ancestors paid a terrible price. They fought alone because no other species was strong enough to stand beside them. Her voice grew stronger. This time, we are not alone. This time, there are thousands of species in the galaxy. This time, we can stand together. She looked directly at Commander Hyunsik. I know the Kethrani are warriors. I know you respect strength. You attacked us because you thought we were weak. But true strength is not about destroying your enemies. It is about protecting those you love. Our ancestors understood this. That is why, when we defeated your fleet, we did not kill a single Kethrani soldier. That is why Commander Hyunsik is still alive. Hyunsik met her eyes. He expected to see anger or triumph. Instead, he saw something he had never seen in an enemy before. He saw forgiveness. We do not ask for your surrender, Yunji said to the assembly. We do not demand loyalty. We offer something different. We offer partnership. We offer a chance to stand together against the darkness. She spread her arms wide. All of you, every species, every world, you are what we live for. You are what we died for. You are the reason our ancestors chose to forget everything and start again. They believed in you. They believed that one day, when the darkness came, you would rise to meet it. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but every being in the hall heard her clearly. We will not let the silence take our children. We will fight. We will protect you with everything we have. This is not a demand for service. This is a promise. Silence filled the assembly hall. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Captain Yuna stood up. Her 4 eyes were bright with emotion. She placed her hand over her heart in the Valari gesture of respect. I stand with humanity, she said. Lieutenant Taiho stood beside her, his scales glowing gold. I stand with the founders. One by one, representatives began to rise. The Valari, the tree people, species that had never trusted each other, species that had fought wars against each other. They stood together now, united by something larger than their differences. Commander Hyunsik watched from his chains. His people had always believed that strength meant conquest. But now he saw a different kind of strength. He saw beings choosing to stand together, not because they were forced, but because they believed in something. Slowly, painfully, he rose to his feet. Every Kethrani eye turned to him. He was their commander. His next words would speak for all of them. The Kethrani have never followed anyone, he said. We have never bowed to any species. The assembly held its breath. But we are not fools, Hyunsik continued. We know a worthy ally when we see one. We know a war worth fighting when it comes. He straightened his shoulders despite his chains. The Kethrani stand with humanity, not as servants, as warriors. When the silence comes, we will be ready. Yunji smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had allowed herself in days. Then let us begin. Far from Nexus Prime, far from Earth, far from everything the Coalition knew, ancient machines continued to wake up. Ships that had slept for 3 million years powered their engines. Weapons that had defended the galaxy once prepared to do so again. And everywhere, beings of every species looked up at the stars with new eyes. They were not alone. They had never been alone. Their parents had been watching over them all along, waiting for the day when they would be ready to stand together. The founders had returned. Not as masters, but as the humans they had always been at heart. Dreamers, protectors. The species that looked at an empty universe and decided to fill it with life and love. And at the edge of the galaxy, where darkness gathered between the stars, the silence felt the light growing stronger. It had waited patiently for millions of years. It had watched its enemies scatter and forget. It had believed that when it returned, There would be no one left to stop it. It was wrong. The children of humanity were awake now. The family was together. And this time, when the silence came, it would find not a broken civilization fighting alone, but a galaxy united. The second flowering had begun, and somewhere in the vast dark between stars, the silence began to move. The final war was coming, but humanity and their children would be ready.